up, Alycats and you viewers? So today I'm covering my May 2017 reading wrap-up. This is a new thing I'm doing on my channel because I've been reading a lot more lately. Man, is it hot in here? It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. No, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, back to the point. I'm covering the 7 books I read in the month of May. And if you want to see more formal written reviews for these books, I'll have those linked down below, or you can visit my website, alycatgeekery.com, which is also linked down below. But let's just get started with the books now. The first book I read was Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I no longer own this book because I hated it with a fiery, burning passion. I know a lot of people love this book, and I'm so sorry if I offended you, but this book took so long to even get anywhere. Like, it takes until the last 60 pages before anything major happens. And all the characters in this book just feel one-dimensional. They're all bratty kids. I didn't care if any of them lived or died. The story of this novel is these group of preteen boys end up stranded on a deserted island after their plane crashes. And they're supposedly the only survivors, and it's their journey of how they survive on this island, but it's just so mind-numbingly boring. There's this thing with the conch shell. Whoever has the conch shell can talk. And I get how this made an impression on the world of literature and television and film today, but just reading this, it hasn't aged very well in my opinion. There's a lot of grammatical errors that somehow passed by the editor of this novel. And again, it was boring as shit. I'm sorry. I give it 2 out of 5 stars. This is up there with Huckleberry Finn for my most hated book of all time. Again, I'm sorry if you love this book, but I just could not stand it. But let's get on to actually happy stuff now. The next book I read was Perfect Little World by Kevin Wilson, and I adored this book. This book follows a young girl named Izzy Poole, who has just graduated from high school, but the kicker is, she is pregnant with her art teacher's baby, and after tragedy ensues, she is given this offer to live in this communal home with 9 other families and 9 other babies, and the education and health care and all that stuff is covered for her and her child for 10 years, and she can also go to school if she wants to. And the only thing is, they have to live there for 10 years all together, and they have to raise each other's kids as their own, basically. So all the kids would technically be brother and sister, and the family members would be brothers and sisters. And this just chronicles how the Infinite Family Project, as it's known, unfurls across the 10 or so years that it takes place. And it also chronicles the relationship between Izzy and the fellow parents and children. And I just thought it was a really, really original idea. It's a really thought-provoking read, and I adored Izzy. I just loved her character, and I rooted for her the entire way. And I loved the ending. It did feel a little rushed, but I loved the ending, and I felt a sense of closure with this novel. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars and highly recommend you read it if it sounds interesting to you, because Kevin Wilson's writing is just so good. It just keeps making you flip the pages until you finish the book and you're like, I want more! Next up, I read Wishful Drinking by Carrie Fisher. This was her first memoir, and she wrote this after receiving ECT, which is electroconvulsive therapy. And she has started to lose her memories when she wrote this novel, so she wrote about her childhood, what she could remember of it. She wrote about how it was like growing up with 2 famous parents, Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds. She wrote about some parts of her career. She also wrote about her mental illness at some point. She doesn't delve into it as much as I wanted her to in this memoir, but she does cover the fact that she has bipolar disorder. And this is just a really funny, fresh memoir. I loved learning more about Carrie Fisher and her past, and what she went through, and her experiences. And even the tough things she went through, she tells it in such a funny, amusing way. It feels like you're talking to your best friend. And some people will be annoyed by the structure of this book just because she'll start a story, then she'll jump to some other completely different story, then she'll jump back to the other story she was talking about previously. But I feel like that's just the way her brain worked, and I felt like I was reading a journal of hers or something. So if you're a Carrie Fisher fan, I highly recommend you read this. Even if you're not a fan of her, I think this is very enlightening and very informative, and it's just laugh out loud funny. I laughed out loud seriously, and I hardly ever do that with books. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars because I wanted more. And it's so short, and I just wanted to know more about Carrie, but I know there's 2 other memoirs to read. So I highly recommend this if you're a fan of hers. The next book that I read was The White Queen by Philippa Gregory. This is the first novel in the Plantagenet and Tudor series, and I adored learning more about Lady Elizabeth Woodville, who married King Edward, and she became the Queen of England. And I love just seeing her story and how she is influenced by Melusina, who is a water goddess. And I love just reading about her troubles and how she deals with having the power of the crown on her. It's a very fun, addictive read once you get into it. It's a little bit slow at the beginning, but once it sinks its claws into you, you're just addicted and you need to read this book to the end. And it's just so fascinating. And a lot of this is actually historically accurate. Of course, there are some fictional parts, like the fact that Elizabeth's mother claims to have magic, as does Elizabeth. Philippa Gregory kind of made up a story about Richard, Elizabeth's youngest son, because there's really no historical records about him after a certain point in history. So she did make up a kind of story that she believed might be plausible about him. But overall, this is a really fascinating, intriguing, engrossing read that when you finally get settled into it, it's just so much fun to read and it's so addictive, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The next novel I read was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This is the novel that Blade Runner was based off of, and this is a fantastic science fiction novel. And this really helps if you've seen the movie but you're still confused by Blade Runner. This helps fill in the background of the story, and it gives more info about the Nexus 6 androids, about the Voight-Kampff test, and it's just really interesting to read about Rick Deckard as he's hunting the Nexus 6 androids, and how his feelings changed about them over the course of the novel, and how the world has been impacted by the androids and by this radioactive dust that has taken over. It's really fascinating. It is different from the film, but it does add to the film in a way. I did feel like the ending was rushed with this, but if you're a science fiction fan, if you love Blade Runner, then I highly recommend Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. I am a fan of Paula Hawkins' writing. She writes in a way that makes you keep flipping the pages, and she writes in a way that makes you want to know whodunit, which both of her books so far have been whodunit thrillers. This is based in England, and it's about this body of water called the Drowning Pool, where several deaths have taken place over the years, and they've all been women who have either supposedly killed themselves, been drowned as witches, etc. And it's all about how this one woman is found dead in this body of water, but she had been researching this body of water for a book she was writing. And this is told through the perspective of several different people. When you're reading the book, it's unspooling how each of these people are related to the woman who died, and it's also unspooling the mystery of, did she kill herself? Did something happen to her? It's a very fun, fast-paced read. I did, again, feel like the ending to this was rushed, but I really enjoyed it, even though I did guess whodunit before it was revealed. But it's a really fun read, and if you like The Girl on the Train, Paula Hawkins' first novel, or you just love crime thrillers and mystery whodunits, I definitely recommend giving Into the Water a read, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I read A Work in Progress by Connor Franta. Connor Franta is a YouTuber, and this is his memoir, and this covers his childhood in Minnesota, I believe. I could be getting my states wrong with this. But it covers his childhood growing up and his relationship with his brothers and sisters and his mom and dad, and then it talks about how he dropped out of college and decided to pursue his YouTube channel as a career. And I found that really inspiring, but I wished he had touched on that more. Kind of skips over those details and just jumps to the major plot points of his life. And then he also has sections where he talks about how he's creative, and he has really amazing photographs in this novel. But again, I wish he had delved a little bit more into how he first discovered he was creative and what he did with his creativity, because he mostly just talks about how he takes photographs and makes YouTube videos. And I kind of would just like to have seen more about how he discovered himself creatively, and I would have liked to have heard more about his backstory just a little bit. But this is a really good read, especially for teenagers who might be grappling with their self-identity and trying to figure out who they are and what they want to do with their life. I think this will really appeal to them, and if you're a fan of Connor Franta's, you'll really enjoy this novel because it's just like you're watching a YouTube video of his. His writing style is him, and I basically heard his voice the entire time I was reading through this, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I did want more from the novel, but I think it serves its purpose, and I think younger people or mega fans of Connor will really love this memoir. So those were all the books I read this month in May. If this was a weird reading wrap-up, I'm sorry. This is my first. It's popping my cherry. I promise you I'll get better. Maybe. 98% promise. But if you like this video, leave a like. Let me know down below in the comment box what you read in the month of May. If you're a reader, if you're not, that's fine. Also, if you like this video, make sure to share it because it helps my channel grow and helps me get closer to my goal of 3,000 subscribers. And also, if you'd like to follow me on social media sites, they're all listed down below in the description box. And also, if you're not subscribed yet, but you'd like to be, make sure you hit the subscription button and tap the bell because that bell alerts you every time I upload a new video or start a new live stream, because YouTube's kind of been slacking on that lately. So hitting the bell makes you a part of the Alycat notification squad, which is super duper cool! Just in my heart, but still it's super duper cool. I love you guys, thank you so much for watching. Peace and kisses. Bye! Sing me a song of a loss that is gone. Oh, hey, you're still here. What a crazy random happenstance. Well, since you just caught me singing and reading off guard, you might as well click on my floating face that will appear over here soonish and subscribe to my channel. Also, if you'd like to see my previous video, it will be up here somewhere. And if you'd like to see a playlist of videos that you can watch on repeat all day, every day, for the rest of your life, you'll find that over here as well. I'm gonna go back to reading my favorite book of all time. Okay, you can go now because I'm really deep into a Jamie Fraser plotline.